Hello, dear friends, it's Carly, and welcome back to my channel and to another video. This is Lola, and as long as I don't move, we should be just fine. I am so excited to bring you this video. I have probably been thinking about this transit for at least 6 months. I've pulled the transit charts, I've studied the planets, the effects on my own chart, the discussion that the nodes are having with all of the other planets. It feels like I've been making my way towards this transit maybe my whole life. So I am so excited to get to share this energy with you. Like always, we're going to take our time and unpack it and spread it out kind of one piece at a time. And then as much as we can, put it all back together. Like what does this really mean? What am I supposed to do with this? What is the point of this transit? So if I'm looking down a lot at my phone, that is because I have made notes for myself. Logical thought continues to elude me unless I write it down. So that's good. Yay for technology and tools that help us overcome our barriers. So I have some notes here as far as what I want to get into in the video. Before we do that though, I've reminded myself, please like this video if you find any value in it whatsoever, or if you just want to give a little boost to my channel. Every little bit of that kind of stuff helps. The likes, the subscribes, the comments, all of it boosts and nudges my content forward on YouTube. Thank you for all of that you are doing. And without further ado, so we are going to start with a picture of the planets at the time that the nodes are going to enter into Taurus and Scorpio. So this is a snapshot of all the planets, January 18th, 2022, and this is for noon Central Time. So make sure and adjust the date and time accordingly for wherever you're located on the planet. Also, this shows the nodes entering Taurus and Scorpio at 29:59, and that is because the nodes are the only thing that normally move backwards. Backwards in astrology is called retrograde. The nodes will be in Taurus Scorpio until July of 2023. Just because I always like to do this and look back at like how often do these energetic cycles play out? How often are they coming around? And so I did the math, and these cycles happen every 18 years, 7 months, and 9 days. So that means the last time that we lived through this exact energetic cycle of the North Node transiting Taurus while the South Node transits Scorpio, the last time it happened was April 13th, 2003 through December 25th of 2004. So I don't know about you, and I invite you to go backwards, travel through time in your mind, take your time machine called your brain and go back to April of 03 through December of 04 and tell me what you were doing. What were you doing? Because for me, holy moly, were those like the worst of my teenage years as far as clashing for power with my parents. It was a big time of them trying to enforce their power over me and me breaking free of said power to exert my own power. And that is so fascinating as far as getting into what does this cycle really represent where the nodes are going through Taurus and Scorpio. So the North Node and South Node are what's called an axis. There are lots of different axes. Sure. In the natal chart, and one of them is the North Node, South Node. And what that means is that they are points that are opposite each other. So on this natal chart wheel, there are 360 degrees. It's a circle. So half of that is 180 degrees. So that means that these 2 points are exactly 180 degrees apart. So they are opposite of each other. So they always inhabit sister signs. And sister signs can be understood as the signs that are opposite each other on the zodiac wheel. It's always the same. Aries is always opposite Libra. Taurus is always opposite Scorpio, Gemini is always opposite Sagittarius, and so on. So those oppositions are an axis all their own. Those pairs of sister signs have shared attributes, and yet at the same time, they are complementary energies, meaning that getting better in one of them will help balance the weak spots of its sister sign. So like Taurus is notoriously very earthly and in the physical realm, whereas Scorpio is way more inhabiting the energetic realm, the emotional realm, the psychic realm. So they balance each other. Taurus has physical senses, Scorpio has psychic senses. So working on each of them helps balance the weak spot of the other. And so when we think about these North Node, South Node transits, they last 18 months per sister sign combo. And so you think about that means that about 9.5 years ago was when the North Node transited through Scorpio. So we have that cycle going on. So like South Node going through Taurus 9.5 years ago, and now it's the North Node's turn to go through Taurus, and South Node's going to go through Scorpio. So that has a pretty different flavor, depending on which end the North Node is on and which end the South Node is on, because they are both doing very different things. So to understand this axis takes us into a realm of astrology called karmic astrology. And this opens us up to a dimension where reincarnation becomes a really helpful concept to understand not just this South Node, North Node axis, but also why are we here? Like, what the hell is the point of being human and being alive? And why would I put up with all of this nonsense? What could possibly be the point? And karma is the point. Like that's very much kind of the currency of this universe is karma. And that is why we keep coming back over and over and over. And if that's something that like doesn't really land in your consciousness, like it just doesn't resonate to think about reincarnation and past lifetimes and when you die in this lifetime, future lifetimes, if that's just really like too far out there for you, you can also think about the South Node just simply as the way your childhood manifested. So your very earliest experiences are also an extension of your karma, and both what you're here to pay back in this lifetime and what you're here to rack up. The positive karma that hopefully you're going to accrue through the spiritual development path that you've set out for yourself. So with that in mind, the South Node represents our past lifetimes. Also, like I said, if you're not going to keep reincarnation in your brain, you want to just toss that aside, go for it. You can also just hear me when I say that as like this is your childhood experience then. So the South Node represents where we're coming from. And with that, a couple different sides of that coin are both a skill set, like a natural expertise that your soul possesses because you have a lot of experience with it in past lifetimes. But there's also a lot of experience with it in past lifetimes. And with the experiences, we always have the good and the bad. And so inside that South Node, there are high frequencies of gifts that you have because you have that experience. There's also a karmic debt typically because you've had that experience and you probably didn't ace the test every single time. You know, maybe, but probably not because we're human and we're naturally imperfect. So all of the ways that we get sucked into the low vibrations of life creates a karmic debt that, you know, you snapped at your kid when you didn't mean to. You lost your temper and did something that you look back and you're like, why did I do that? You know, like that wasn't me. Well, it kind of was you. And now that you've done it, now that you've racked up that karma, it's time to pay it back. It's time to make up for it and heal yourself. And in doing so, heal mass consciousness. So these nodes, I'm such a node nerd because I absolutely love studying like what is the karma that we brought with us? Like what is it that we're really trying to learn by coming back and like having a do-over? What is it that we want to do differently that we didn't like how we did it before? And to tie it back to like your early experience in this lifetime, it's like the way your childhood manifests, we learn a certain way of doing things, and then we get to decide as we reach adulthood and our individuation process that is that really how you want to do it? Like, does that line up with your values? Does that, satisfy your authentic desire for life on this planet? Or is it you dancing to somebody else's tune? Either way, like, those questions are worth asking. And then you have the North Node, which is basically our own personal North Star. It's like when you walk on that path, you're walking the path that your soul meant to walk. So leaning into developing the qualities, the highest frequency qualities of whatever energy your North Node falls in. So this is bigger than just Taurus and Scorpio and this transit that we're going to go through for the next 18 months, because ultimately every single 18-month cycle is just one more chapter to try to free us towards living out the North Node path, whatever we selected, right? You have an 18-month window as far as like the North Node's going to be in this sign for 18 months. And if you were born during that window where the North Node is in whatever sign, mine's Pisces, like I came when North Node was in Pisces because I fully intended to walk that path. That would be where my spiritual development would really move into high gear, where all of my soul's most cooperative components, like all of the pieces that have to fall into place, the more I lean into that North Node energy, the more those pieces are just there waiting for me. Because really, at the end of the day, we're an extension of the universe itself. We are the universe itself, experiencing itself in human form. So we came forward for a reason. We came forward because we wanted the experience of it. And inside of that experience, there's so many different ways that you can go about it. And selecting whichever sign the North Node was in when you were born, that very much gave you that North Star of here, reach for this. Have the journey that goes along with reaching for this. And that's like kind of this backbone of your soul's path and where you're coming from and what you're trying to heal and what you're trying to lean into. It's such a helpful framework. I feel like I could go on and on and on, obviously, about both ends of the spectrum and how much satisfying work there is to do on both ends of the spectrum. And really, they do work together. It is not at all that we're really trying to like leave behind our past and move only towards our future. It's like harnessing the past and what the past gave us while simultaneously releasing and healing any of the damage that the past might have caused, while we lean into and open up and practice the skills of whatever our North Star is pointing towards. I was going to say asking for from us, but it's not, because we selected it. We chose, I believe, when we came forward. And this again goes back into the reincarnation belief. So if you can't do that, maybe skip to the next chapter. That's cool. But we chose when we came forward. I believe that we chose the day, the time, the location, the family, the exact timing and location of our entry into this planet could not have been more precisely timed by us, not some outside force or like other entity that's deciding our fate. We decided as a soul, this is the next chapter of evolution that I am seeking, and therefore I time my entry so that I have the energetic tools that I need to walk this path that I'm setting out to walk. And that's basically how all the planets can be understood inside the natal chart. The chart itself is like a toolbox. When you open the toolbox inside, there's all different kinds of tools that do all different kinds of things. They all need you to learn how to use them so that you're proficient at using all of these different tools. But basically all the planets, they're each a different tool in that toolbox. And you brought the right tools for the job. That's the bottom line of my personal love affair with astrology, is that we all came at the perfect time. We have the perfect energy to do the mission that our soul was stepping forward to do. So using astrology to help us relax into that, and specifically the North and South Node, are very helpful in terms of, knowing like If you're trying to get to Chicago and you're seeing signs for Dallas, you're going in the wrong direction. That's basically the North and South Node. Like if you're feeling the energy of your South Node rising, you're going the wrong way. And if you feel the energy of your North Node rising, you're going the right way. So it's not about changing or becoming anything. It's about navigating the energy that is ours, the energy that was imprinted on our soul the second we came into this vessel, the second that we were born into this world, into this physical existence, our own individual physical existence. That has that energetic imprint, and it's all divinely intended and perfect, exactly the way it needs to be. So each of these 18-month cycles, it's just another chapter in this larger story of you living out the North Node soul mission that you set out to live when you came into this vessel. So this Taurus Scorpio work that we're going to spend the whole rest of this video talking about, I do also want to lay down this piece first of your personal North Node is really important. So whatever sign, whatever house that lands in for you, that really is the most important because that's really what you're aiming for. So any of these things that we're going to talk about with Taurus and Scorpio, it is just in service of getting you to whatever placement your North Node is in. And you can think very much of like these chapters, they clear this kind of debris that's only in the way. And then this next chapter with these different signs, they clear a different kind of debris that's only in the way. And then this next chapter with these other signs, they clear a different kind of debris. And like every single one of them is clearing things away to try to get your path to be as open as it can be to live that North Node soul purpose that we came forward to live. So again, as much as you can, like go back to your own placement and try to ground even this Taurus Scorpio work back into your ultimate mission of living out whatever North Node placement you have. So through each chapter, so for this one, Taurus and Scorpio, it's about purging from your South Node energies. So the South Node going through a sign brings out the lowest frequencies that you're carrying of that sign's energy. And we're going to get more into it, like nitty-gritty details, what it means. So this is just theoretical. We purge from our South Node the lowest frequency of that energy to make space for the highest frequency of the North Node energy. In this case, Taurus. In this particular cycle, we are purging from Scorpio and we are building Taurus. So that is super high level what we're here to talk about. Like, what does it mean to purge Scorpio and to build Taurus? And ultimately, both, like I said, it's very much a mixture of working with both ends of the spectrum kind of simultaneously. It's not a linear process. It's very much chaotic and kind of back and forth bouncing between the two, as they both have pieces of the puzzle. So that's why we're going to get into like both of them specifically. And again, because this is how my mind works, I understand this upcoming cycle better because I've spent so much time understanding what I got out of this Gemini Sagittarius cycle that's just coming to a close. I'm recording this at the end of December. So we still have a few more weeks until January 18th, right? Until January 18th to work with this Gemini Sagittarius energy. So I will spend just a little bit of time talking about that cycle that happened from May of 2020 until January 18th of 2022. So Gemini Sagittarius rule the intellect, our belief structures, what we know/believe to be true about the world. So for us to purge our South Node in Sagittarius meant that we were wiggling free from old, outdated beliefs that had been taught to us previously, but since then, they don't really fit with us and our authentic selves. So we have to clear those away, let go of those old beliefs and any of the structures that go with that. Think about like structures and beliefs can be tied together. Like, if, for instance, you're no longer believing, you're no longer having faith in whatever religion you subscribe to, chances are you're probably not going to go to church. And that is a huge structure for most people who are going to church on a regular basis. There's friends there, there's other support systems that exist through the church. So to have your religious or philosophical beliefs evolve such that you no longer resonate with the religion where you're finding all of these other structural support for your life, that Sagittarius, it sounds like, oh, beliefs, like easy peasy, like it's not happening in the earth realm, but the repercussions of evolving beliefs will play out into the earth realm. And that's a lot what we're seeing as we go from this last cycle to the Taurus Scorpio one. And to overcome those old belief structures meant that we were building Gemini. The North Node was going through Gemini. So that meant exploring those highest frequency places of Gemini energy. And as much as Gemini gets a rap for being chatty, the highest frequency of Gemini is actually their ability to listen, their ability to observe and absorb like a sponge their environment, whatever that is. And so the highest frequency of Gemini is total, open, unbiased, unblocked ability to pay attention. It is perfect attention on whatever is standing in front of you. And it's easy to think like, I pay attention, I'm taking in everything all the time. Like probably you're taking in a lot of stuff, no doubt about it. But the lower frequency of Gemini is guiding your attention by your own biases. So it's like if you have a bias that says this certain race or this certain gender or whatever it is bad, and then you see somebody standing in front of you who's telling you something important, how likely are you to listen? So like you just, that's the biases kind of shutting down your ability to pay attention. If you think someone is not intelligent, if you think they are less than you, if you've already made that conclusion, your ability to pay attention to them and to soak up what they have to say and to listen intelligently to their side of the story, it's like non-existent. So the lowest frequency of Gemini is nonstop talking, where all you can do is repeat what you've already heard and like just spin it into cycles of like telling the same thing over and over and over again, where the highest frequency is constant listening, constantly absorbing more and more new stimuli from your environment. Again, whatever that is, free of judgment, free of shutting down your ability to pay attention because you don't think the source is credible. And that is challenging, obviously. But this last 18-month cycle, that's exactly what we've been doing. That's where we've been as a collective, is building our ability to open our minds, to set aside our own personal biases, and to listen more openly. And if you're thinking like, hell, we have, like, blah, 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 like, that's not what I've been experiencing in my world. Like, well, I mean, it kind of depends on where you're coming from as far as your vibration and what your experience is going to show you. Because again, I think the lower frequency of these cycles where the nodes move through the signs, like the lower expression of it is you bump into more walls. You're having consequences of using biases and using prejudices and like letting your attention be guided by biased thinking and not being open. Like if you're existing at a lower frequency of Gemini, then basically you're having more consequences for that. So you're having a rough ride. You're having a rougher ride than you need to because of your own blocking off of whatever it is that there's a barrier in there. And that North Node through Gemini cycle that we're just wrapping up has been about removing as many barriers as we can so that we can hear openly. Because the thing about Gemini is like everybody thinks that when you're listening, like you're not making your point. But the whole thing is like there's no point to make. There is no point. So like talking is futile. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that you really have to do is the Sagittarius end, where you get to decide out of everything that I've absorbed from my environment, what of this is me and what of this can I let go of? So if you're if you're listening to somebody who's saying something that is completely different than anything that you've ever believed in your whole life, chances are it's a lower frequency expression would be like to get defensive, to get on the offensive, to try to point out to that other person why they're wrong. All you got to do is scroll around social media for like half a second and see how many people are living a lower expression, how many people want to argue it out with somebody else to prove their point. And this cycle has been about bumping into the consequences of living that way. So Gemini Sagittarius like has opened us up, has gotten us to see our belief system more clearly, has gotten us to see like what are we holding on to that really doesn't even belong to us, that we could let go of and we could have more open space. I don't have to get so riled up about this. It's really not any of my business. And the ultimate benefit of this openness is that out in the world, we are able to find nuggets that expand our truth, that add to it in new and beautiful and so delicious ways. Like there's so much out there that we block ourselves from receiving because of our own personal biases. We get it in our heads that it has to look like this. It has to happen this way. I need to get married by the time I'm 31. I need to, like any kind of external needs that we impose on ourselves is like the exact opposite of being open to the path and letting what we want reveal itself to us through whatever path the universe is able to deliver it. Most of us aren't living the lives that we want simply because the universe is delivering it in a way that we don't recognize. And because we don't recognize it, we don't believe that that's really the path. And it's like, okay, you can be headstrong. Sure, you can. Or you can open up to maybe not getting what you think you want is actually the universe giving you what you truly want. So this Gemini Sagittarius has really like tried to shake the foundation of our belief system and get us to look at it more clearly, more honestly, from a more like emotionally detached perspective of what works best for me. And when you have that figured out, there's nothing to argue about with anybody. So like, I agree, not everybody's on the high frequency end of it, but here's the beautiful thing, and this is so high frequency Gemini, is to realize like nobody else has to know shit for you to be able to know it and for you to embody it and for you to get to live the positive repercussions of whatever knowledge it is that you think you need to teach to somebody else. You don't need to teach them. They don't have to know. They don't have to get it. They don't have to want to get it for you to get it, for you to get the benefit of it and to let go of anybody else's experience and just be inside your experience. And knowing that you have full control, you have full autonomy over your experience. Whether you're living that right now or not, you sure do. That would make a fun video, like a whole video on what does that even mean. So, coming to the end of this Gemini Sagittarius cycle, there's a progression to these as they go. So, obviously, most things go from 1 to 12. They build from Aries to Pisces, and this is the opposite. It's building in kind of the opposite way. And as we come from this North Node in Gemini place of just being open and taking in everything and soaking up the entire world around you, just being a total sponge, which I have just loved this cycle. Now, as we move into Taurus and Scorpio, it is about narrowing back in to your truth, like the truth of your values and what is it that you ultimately believe. And it's so fun to think about how Gemini Sagittarius, it's wiggled us free of other people's conditioning and indoctrination of us so that we can feel more soundly into who are we and what do we believe. And then this next cycle is where you take every ounce of all the work that you've done in this Gemini Sagittarius period, and we're going to bring it into Taurus Scorpio, where we get to really root into not only the expansion we've created, but we get to deepen the release of what we've begun in this Gemini Sagittarius cycle. And I was going to say, as far as them blending backwards, because again, normally you think about them blending forwards, but blending backwards, I think they both share this commitment to the truth, and that there's almost like there are so many other signs that are so committed to relations with other people. And when you look at these four, this Gemini, Sagittarius, Taurus, Scorpio, they are much more committed to their own personal experience of the truth. So as far as like this 18-month cycle we've already been working in, and to go into another 18-month cycle where we will again further ground into our personal experience of the truth, so freaking cool. And at the very end, I'm going to foreshadow just a little bit as far as like once we live through this Taurus Scorpio cycle, next will be North Node going into Aries and what that looks like, because holy moly, every ounce of what we're doing right now is building to something that we will be glad that we built the strength once we get to that trial. We'll get there. Oh, my foot is numb. It's numb and it's no longer a foot. It's shaped like a crushed Cheeto. That's not good. We're gonna need to wake that back up. So we have finally reached the point of this video. How about that? So Taurus, Scorpio, as a set of sister signs, they are about power and security and foundations. And when you think about that dynamic, Taurus is the physical side of it in the earth realm and the physical senses. And Scorpio is the emotional realm, energetic realm, psychic senses. So both, though, pointing back towards power, security, and foundations. First, we're going to break down the South Node transiting through Scorpio. So that purge through Scorpio, what is it that we're trying to clear out? And then second, we'll look at the Taurus side of it, like these energies. The North Node is going through Taurus, so what energies are we trying to build? And as we build in that area, it helps to balance and help us transcend the lessons that we're having on the Scorpio end. So if that basically breaks down to, if your Scorpio experience is really difficult over the life of this transit, we need more building happening in the Taurus end. So that means practicing what we're going to talk about in the Taurus part of this video. So then at the end, we'll kind of tie it all back together. So the first thing I want to talk about with Scorpio and Taurus, all sister signs are the same modality. So modalities are mutable, cardinal, and fixed. Scorpio and Taurus are fixed signs. And that is the easiest one to understand. It's exactly what it sounds like. They are fixed energy. So what that means on the Scorpio side is that they hang on emotionally. Their emotions tend to be in kind of a fixed place. Like once that Scorpio energy is wounded, it lasts for a really long time. Again, because Scorpio is not really great at letting go. And that is kind of the whole point of a South Node transit through any sign, is to let go. And when we have South Node through Scorpio, we're wanting to specifically let go of karma around hurts that happened in the past. So pain that was in the past. And if you're like me and using reincarnation for your model, it's like those pains that we are still very much suffering from happened in past lifetimes. Like not even here with you in this lifetime. Like there are things that I'm afraid of and that I'm like so insecure about, and like that's never actually happened to me in this lifetime, and yet it feels like it has. And I'm like, I know that those are the kinds of things that like, yeah, you were burned in a past lifetime bad, and now you have this fear that's left over. And South Node through Scorpio, that purge is about purging our fears, purging old pain. That the beauty of Scorpio is that it plays its part in the water family. The water family specifically serves us in our healing and regeneration. So each element has its own function, and water is about healing ourselves and others. And Scorpio's role in the water family is about experiencing and looking at and analyzing the full range of human emotion. And pain and fear and worry and loss and grief, those are, the worst of the worst. But Scorpio doesn't shy away from any emotion. So Scorpios are more likely to be well versed in those negative spectrum emotions simply because they have a willingness and a tolerance to look at them. That's literally all Scorpio has to do is look at it. Sit with it. And as you sit with it, you will understand it, and the understanding will come. That is just part of the process. You don't have to do that part. The understanding comes, and at that point, you have blended into Pisces, and Pisces' role in the water family is to transcend. So that's ultimately where we're headed, right? Like we're doing this release, this purge through the South Node going through Scorpio. And then here in a few years, we'll go through the North Node going through Pisces. So we'll build our transcendence. So it's all building one cycle on another. This work, so good. So this 18-month cycle is going to be a notable period of shadow work, of being shown some of the lower frequency energies that you're carrying. And the part that I want to really draw out here is because Scorpio and Taurus are fixed signs, they also somewhat tend to fear change. And so if that is anything close to like what is rising in you, as I talk about like releasing stuff and moving on and doing different things, like if you're fearing change, I do want to say that Taurus and Scorpio especially are really good at like holding on. So what that means, what you can be guaranteed of, is that you will not let go and move on 1 second before you're ready to. These signs must voluntarily release. They cannot, they're built to hold on. So if they're going to release and move forward, then they have to willingly open up and do that release. So don't ever fear like this is all going to happen so fast and I'm not ready and all of that. No, you're in the driver's seat and you get to decide when it's all ready to go down. And the thing is, these are collective energies, and there's people out there who are going to go through this same transit of, the South Node moving through Scorpio, where it's wanting us to purge our deepest, darkest shit. And they're going to continue to stuff their emotions, and they're just not ready. And that's just where they're at on their evolutionary path. But like we said about the last cycle, it's like those people are going to be the ones running into more and more obstacles that make life feel so much harder than it needs to be. And those are the ones that get the loudest. They're in the most pain. They're crying out for help. And it's like their own lack of release is really all that's hurting them. So we can kind of use that as we go through this cycle of shadow work and potentially more negative emotion than we're used to. We can always go back to, when I hold on, I get beat up. When I hold on to something that's not meant for me, I get beat up. And when I let go of things that aren't meant for me, things that are meant for me are what come in to fill that space. And it's all up to me. We're all in the driver's seat. We're all getting to choose how we focus and what we want to create on a daily basis. Some people are letting other people tell them what to create. And even that is a choice. Passivity is a choice, even though those of us in a passive mode would like to think that it's not. It is. I'm looking at you, Carly. Okay, so this again is where it's helpful to have some knowledge about the cycle we're coming out of, because South Node through Sagittarius loosened us up in our belief systems to release and kind of do a purge around anything that was given to us in early childhood or in a past life that is not in alignment with our authentic selves. This has been a time of purging through our belief systems. And the thing is, like we talked about, those purges, while it sounds like it's an internal structure type thing, it's not going to play out in the physical world, it has to. And so that's where we are right now, is based on your belief system, your sense of power develops. So if you believe that your parents are in control, then you also, by extension, come to the conclusion that they are more powerful than you. So someday when you believe that they're not in control, or you don't want them to be in control anymore. This is just an example. There's so many different examples. When you're ready to not have them be in control anymore, it's happening because of a belief structure shift. But then in reality, you have to take it one step further to reallocate power, because now your beliefs are different. So that part of the process doesn't happen during Sagittarius. That's just the belief structure update. Now the South Node moves into Scorpio, where the updates now are in our power structure. And how we feel our power, how we feel other people's power, how we experience those power dynamics throughout our life, in all areas of our life, really. And we'll get more into this later, but you can look more at like how this is going to play out in your chart by finding where Taurus and Scorpio fall in your chart. So then you can understand, like, do you have other planets there? What houses are we in? We can start to personalize it that way, but we'll get more into a whole section on that here later in the video. So anytime we're going to talk about power, especially on the Scorpio end, this is emotional power. This is our internal sense of our ability to assert our authentic selves out into the world. That's my own personal definition of power. So lower frequencies of power of Scorpio energy, they can manifest like two ways. One is overpowering other people to where you become a tyrant and you force people to comply with you. Otherwise, you're impossible to be around. That's one way that we can abuse our power for reasons that we're going to get into here in a second. The second way is that we give every ounce of our power away. We let other people have power over us by asking their opinion, letting them make our decisions for us. Maybe we didn't even ask. Maybe they just said, "Oh my gosh, like your butt looks awful in those jeans." And you maybe just got done thinking like, "Damn, I look good today." And then you go and change your pants because they said it looks bad. So all of that is kind of like in this realm of when you have a low frequency of Scorpio, we really don't know until we get into it, like which side of the coin are you going to fall on? And chances are, if you have heavy Scorpio energy in your chart, you probably attract a lot of power struggle type experiences into your world, and you probably land on both sides. It's like there are times where you feel powerless, you feel like you're not able to be your real self because somebody else is more powerful than you. And then there are other times when because of that, because you now have all of your powers like bottled up and like repressed, now you're also exploding onto, shit runs downhill. So you're beating up the kids, you're kicking your dog, like you're taking it out on things that you perceive to be less powerful than yourself. And really all of it's the same. All of it is a low frequency of Scorpio. Some other ways, some keywords for the lowest frequencies of Scorpio: fear, emotional manipulation, control, living in survival mode, lack of intimacy, projecting deep pain onto others instead of facing it yourself. And again, I think so many of those, like fear, emotional manipulation, like chances are if emotional manipulation is a theme in your life, most people recognize it when they feel that they've been manipulated by somebody else and they don't like it. It makes them really mad. And so that's why they're like, I attract narcissists or whatever. But again, I'm here to tell you that like that shit rolls downhill. So chances are, if you're recognizing that emotional manipulation is a part of your life because you're receiving it, most likely you're also perpetuating it onto other people that you perceive to be less powerful than yourself. So all of that, no matter which way you recognize it, the answer is to draw your power back into yourself. Anytime that we're taking it out on somebody else, we've lost track of where power even comes from. And when we externalize our power, when we give it to an outside authority figure or religious figure or whatever, when we put our power outside of us, we're begging for a consequence of being shown like, okay, so here's some suppression. Here's some some pushing you down, since apparently you're not powerful. And like, just like I said back in the beginning, when the last time this cycle came through, it was very much my parents' power and my power collided, and one of them was going to have to win. Obviously it was mine. I was a kid, I was growing up, like that was kind of the whole point. But now I'm like, interesting. I still expect to be met with every ounce of my personal power that I have left scattered out in the world. And that's going to come back to me through repression, through other people trying to control me, other people trying to manipulate me, other people trying to get me to do what they want to do instead of what I want to do. Every ounce of that tells me that my power was still outside of myself. And this experience is to help me recognize, oh shit, you still had some of my power? I had no idea. Ew, gross. Give me that. That's mine. That's not yours. Like, that's all it has to be. You don't have to get mad at them. You don't have to go to therapy and they manipulated me and I need to get to the bottom of like, why do I keep attracting people who manipulate me? Well, short version is your power is floating around outside of yourself, and the sooner we can bring it back in. And so the answer to all of this, like we said, like it's very much working with Taurus and Scorpio simultaneously, because the answer to how do you get your power back in yourself, you go work on your Taurus energy. So we're going to get into that here in just a second. Because I do want to give you just a couple things as well on the South Node transit. So we can go even deeper into this transit through Scorpio by looking to the ruler of Scorpio. Technically, Scorpio has two rulers, an ancient and a modern. The modern ruler is what I'm talking about as far as Pluto. So Pluto is in Capricorn right now, and Pluto in Capricorn is about transforming and transcending what structures exist in this physical world that are not built on sustainable foundations. So Pluto in Capricorn is a time of the establishment crumbling. And I believe that we have seen a lot of things over these last couple years that look like stress tests on our systems. And a lot of systems have failed, have failed the test. There are huge flaws, huge vulnerabilities inside these systems. And what that means is that these foundations, like they're not sustainable. And so what is the answer? Like, what is the next direction? We've done this part of the experiment and we see based on these structures, here's the outcome that we had. So now what have we learned from this experiment and how are we going to implement it to build something even more sustainable in the future? So Pluto in Capricorn is bound to shake up the structures of what exists in this world. And all of it is always aiming towards like, let's build something even better. So again, we come back to if you're any kind of afraid of change or like, you know, this is kind of making you nervous, like the establishment's crumbling, like, oh, I don't know if I want all that. Like just there is such a divine timing to all of these things that every single ounce of it, again, especially as we move through Taurus, Scorpio, like is under our individual control. Like so much of our readiness, like we get to decide how open the valve is. And when we're ready to take the leap, that's when the leap happens. So there's really nothing to fear as far as like all of this kind of coming onto you and outside of your control. If anything, Taurus and Scorpio are like the most in control. So really that bottom line is like anything that's really you can't ever leave you anyway. So if you have fear about losing something, then chances are that's a sign of an attachment. And this is kind of more of a 12th house conversation, but it fits here where like any kind of attachment, you're basically begging the universe to like rip that thing away from you so that you can see that you actually aren't as dependent on it as you thought you were. So attachment is something that goes hand in hand with fear. So in that sense, like it is very Scorpionic. And in terms of this South Node moving through Scorpio, those fears are going to come up. And a lot of times those fears are our attachments. Like without attachment, there's very little to be afraid of. So when you realize like where your true power comes from, that like your true power is spiritual, that your soul can't be destroyed, like at that point, like what is there to be afraid of? For real. Like there's nothing that can harm your soul. Your soul is non-physical. It's mist. It's nothing. It's everything. It just like doesn't fear on a human level, sure, but fear on a spiritual level, like when you've integrated that we are extensions of the universe and we are the universe experiencing itself in human form, and when this vessel expires, we'll reemerge into non-physical and we'll get a new vessel maybe, and that's just how it goes. Like there's really literally nothing to fear in this life experience. And yet even I can say that, I know it intellectually, and yet the fears come up. And that's where I am inviting you to look at it in terms of when you're afraid or when you feel that need to control other people, or you're mad because you feel like somebody else is encroaching and trying to control you. When that happens, look at it like what fears are at play here? What attachments are at play here? When you feel like somebody else is stepping into your space and controlling you, why aren't you standing up for yourself? You know, if it was that simple, you would be. You're attached to something. You're attached to this person liking me still, or maybe it's more serious than that. Maybe I'm married to this person. Maybe this person is the parent of my children. Like there's an attachment that says I can't be me because this person has power and I don't. And that's just never true. That's like literally never true. So this season, expect to be shown all of those fears that you're still operating on, that are still causing you to allocate power in a certain way that is outdated. So any kind of negative emotion, especially around fear or control or manipulation or emotional outbursts of any kind, are going to be a good signal that there's a disruption to your personal power happening somewhere, and chances are there's an attachment in there that is blocking the flow of your personal power. Either that, or you're falling into the situation. I gotta think there's way less people on this end watching this video. I don't know, maybe I'm completely off base. But if you're falling into the situation where you find you're finding yourself needing to control other people, where like you're manipulating them and you're just taking advantage of people that you know are less powerful than you. If that's where you are, then also you really do have to ask yourself, like, why can't you feel your power inside of yourself? Why are you having to exercise this control and like harvest power from other people? And in the getting of their power, then you feel powerful. And if you're not getting theirs, then you don't feel it. That's also an attachment that is blocking you off from feeling your own personal power. So either way it's going, it's like, what are you attached to that's no longer serving you? There's some kind of update from this Sagittarius cycle, the Sagittarius purge of your belief systems, that it hasn't fully updated into how you allocate power in the world, how you give it to yourself, how you assign it to other people. There's a fuller version of this update that's ready to download, is how this cycle is feeling like it's going to play out. So to quickly recap, the South Node Transit in Scorpio, the release that we go through will be deep and it will be voluntary. This is about beliefs and truths that we were fed as children that became our internalized belief structure. And because of that, we developed our sense of power, both our power over others and others' power over us. Over the last cycle, we've gotten a lot clearer on who our authentic self really is. And because of that, it's now time to update our power beliefs, our power structures. We're trying to purge the lowest frequencies of Scorpio: fear, emotional manipulation, control, living in survival mode, lack of intimacy, and projecting deep pain onto others instead of facing it ourselves. When we pull in the Pluto piece, we get Capricorn and how that's playing out in terms of the structures of our world and for us as individuals. that everything is basically purifying into something that's sustainable long term, not only sustainable, but also matches the most authentic version of who we've become up to now. And that anything that is really you can never go away. So next we'll unpack the North Node end of what's happening, and just remember as we go through all of this that it really is more simultaneous than this is painting that picture. So, once we get done with this North Node end, we'll put it all back together to like, what will this process really look like in a more ebb and flow type scenario, which is really what we're going to experience, I think. As we go through this scorpionic release of being shown our fears and our attachments, and you decide that this attachment doesn't align with who I am now. It was older and it served me back then, but now I don't need to be attached to that thing. I can let it go. And so you go through that process of letting go, which is a whole thing all by itself. And that is a very open and maybe vulnerable feeling place. And the natural question is like, okay, but how do I actually do that? Like, how do I just decide that I'm going to let something go? Like, that doesn't even make sense. That's why the answer is back over here on the North Node in the Taurus part. So our ability to open up into the Taurus end of the spectrum will basically provide the conviction and the power and the self-empowerment that we need on the Scorpio side to draw what is basically a clearer emotional boundary with people, where you claim your power for your own, you let them have all of their own power, you don't need any of theirs because you have full access to yours, and you operate in the world like that with mutual respect for all beings and creatures. It doesn't seem that complicated. But we all have shadows to release. We all have things that we will be met with during the Scorpio South Node cleanse. And so leaning into the highest frequencies of Taurus and connecting with our Taurus energy is what will give us the foundation. And it's not as much leaving something old behind as it really truly is stepping forward towards something new. So again, in terms of the how question, it really is here, like lean into this Taurus energy, and so much of this South Node Scorpio stuff is going to take care of itself. It will naturally work itself out. The dust will settle, and the clearness, the serenity, the inner peace, the answer will be there. The situation is not complicated. It's actually simple. And that is the easiest way to mess up Taurus energy, is to try to complicate it and try to really figure it out. Because like Taurus, it's one of my faves. Here we go. So the highest frequency of Taurus is knowing our value. So that's a big mushroom. That's like so many bites. Knowing our own personal value. So we take up space in this world naturally. We have a vessel, and and then there's our aura, which is like 3 times bigger than our vessel. And like, yeah, we're taking up space in this world, and knowing our value is something that happens. I can feel it like right in my core, like right here, to know that you are allowed to take up space in this world. So here we are in the high frequency of Taurus. So this is number 1. Also, when we say knowing our value, we mean knowing our values and what is truly important. Like, think here, not all that glitters is gold. Not everything that's shiny on the outside is actually worth a lot. So Taurus is very, very keen to discern what is truly valuable from things that are not valuable. And so the shadow side of Taurus, and this is where, chances are as we build in our North Node space of Taurus these next 18 months, will likely also be met with our shadows from Taurus as well. And that looks like materialism. That looks like, well, when I have the newest iPhone, then I'll be valuable. then I'll measure up the way that I'm supposed to. And assigning our value to our material possessions is not how it works. Our ability to feel peaceful and content on the inside is really the highest frequency of Taurus. It's like you have to really go back to what even is abundance. And Taurus is known for abundance, but then again, like you really do have to do a deep dive. And this is the season, North Node and Taurus, hello, for what is abundance? What does that even mean? And I just did a video called 2022, the Year of Inner Abundance. If this is ringing your bells, I highly recommend you check out that video, link in the description. You really do have to do a deep dive into what is abundance, and the highest frequency of Taurus knows real value for themselves to be inner peace. That ability to feel peaceful on the inside is everything. You know, a lot of people think I want to make a big pile of money so I don't have to go to work, so I don't have the headache of work, and then I'll feel peaceful. You know, once I'm like on permanent retirement, then I'll get some peace. And it doesn't really work like that, because peace is something that we give to ourselves. It's not something that happens to us. So again, we're very much working in a Taurus spectrum of energy here, is like our ability to feel peaceful. And again, to go just a little bit deeper back to the Capricorn side of it, the ruler of Taurus is Venus, and Venus is also in Capricorn, conjunct, meaning next to Pluto. And Venus is doing a retrograde right now, which only happens once every year and a half and will go on for the next couple months to kind of kickstart this Taurus Scorpio node cycle. The rulers of Taurus and Scorpio are conjunct in Capricorn, and it just screams all of the structures in our lives that are keeping us from our inner peace have got to go. It is high time that they make their exit. All of it should crumble, because at the end of the day, the most valuable thing we will ever have as humans is our own ability to feel peaceful on the inside. Because when we're peaceful on the inside, our natural animal essence can flow. And those instincts and that intuition has the answer to every single thing you could ever need in your whole life, inside that Taurus simplicity of just like letting yourself be present in the moment. Like, it sounds like it should be so much more complicated than that, and I promise you it's not. And this is the season to like let ourselves be peaceful, to give ourselves that peace, and to, this is fun. When we're not peaceful, which is probably most when you're going to work with this, is like when you feel your peace has left you. You're now filled with frustration or aggravation. It's the traffic, it's the work, it's the partner, it's the kids, doesn't matter what it is. When you're filled with that, like, I'm no longer peaceful, that's a moment where we're back on the Scorpio end of, there's an attachment here. There's a fear. There's something playing itself out, because there's something amiss in how you're behaving right now compared to your deepest sense of values. You've deviated from yourself and you're acting out this belief, whatever it is, and it's the negative emotion you're feeling is the obstacle. So like, what is this belief? What is this fear? What is this attachment? And all back towards the end of like, the only things, like the things that we want in this life anyway, are because we think we'll feel better when it happens like that. Like, you think that, well, once I no longer have a job, once I'm an entrepreneur and I'm my own boss, then I'll, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, like, you take yourself with you. And I'm telling myself this story because this is a lesson I've had to learn over and over again, is like, as much as I want to be in my head and make plans and achieve goals and like create in the physical and like do all these things, like really like the most valuable human experience is to be at peace. And even then, I instantly start thinking like, how can I teach this to others? How can I explain this to others? And obviously here I am making this video and I can't help myself, but I do also practice the most valuable thing that I can do is to leave everybody else alone and find my own inner peace And from that place of inner peace, let that energy guide me forward through the world and see how people react to me. You know, when you've achieved your own inner peace, the world treats you differently. So instead of getting mad at how the world is treating us and blaming and projecting and fighting with these external enemies that are only a reflection of our internal enemies, we rob ourselves of our peace. So this is a season, this Taurus North Node transit, 18 months, January 2022 to July of 2023, is a season for granting ourselves peace, figuring out how to get ourselves to relax and to feel peaceful and to navigate the world from that place, and then to spot any of the obstacles that pop their head up. When there's negative emotion, there's an underlying attachment that does not serve you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling the obstacle. The whole goal of negative emotion is it's communicating to you something that needs healed. So most likely there's a release of some kind of attachment that needs to be worked out. And to do that, to like actually get into the nuts and bolts of how to do that, there's ways, there's therapy, there's hiring a professional. And if you feel out of your depth and you can afford that, I so highly recommend it. There's also so many therapists on YouTube these days and Instagram and probably every platform for that matter, who, especially during COVID, like their patients, like they had less business, so they had more time on their hands, and a lot of them made YouTube channels. So there's so much free content out there as far as how to deal with these shadows as they come up. For me personally, journaling is a necessary outlet to sit with things that feel uncomfortable. I find I'm able to be in the discomfort more if I'm relaying the experience. So I write it down. I describe, like, I can feel this really awful feeling in my stomach. The thought that keeps looping is XYZ. Those kinds of things, to try to like keep myself grounded in the experience of this maybe really uncomfortable feeling. And like I said, the understanding that comes from sitting in it is natural. You can't help but understand it when you sit in it. So let that part happen. If you stay long enough, it'll happen. If it hasn't happened yet, you haven't stayed long enough. So, you've gone too far. So let's see what the notes have to offer here. So as far as like how to build up our Taurus energy, the highest frequency of Taurus is the dominant well-being of nature. Like when you're totally tuned in to your inner animal, you know that all is well. Unless there's like a cheetah chasing you right now, then you're fine. Like you're alive and there's no predator on your ass. So chill out. Like that's the highest frequency of Taurus, which I absolutely love because practicing my chill is like top of my list as far as my life priorities at this point. So to do that, to connect with this dominant well-being of nature, we can earth, like actually doing earthing. There's a really great YouTube documentary about earthing. I'll link in the description, which just basically means like putting your bare skin on the earth because there are vibrations and we're meant to be connected. Yeah, cool. Check it out. Let us see. Spending time, that one, interesting. Spending time in nature is obviously very good. Connecting to our inner animal. This is a fun little exercise that I got out of Stephen Forrest's book, I believe the Book of Earth, where he talks about Taurus. To connect with our inner animal, if it's not something that you already regularly practice, which the more I circulate in the spiritual world, like there's so many people who have spirit animals and I'm like, why don't I have one? It doesn't really matter. You can still do this exercise, which I think is why I loved it so much. So even if you've never even thought about it, think about what is your favorite animal. And most of us can conjure a favorite animal or two or three pretty quickly. So using that favorite animal, whatever came to mind in this moment, think about the natural habitat of that animal. So let's say it was an octopus. Deep sea is the natural habitat of an octopus, and not even just under the ocean, but under the ocean at nighttime. Now, octopuses are nocturnal. So like night scuba diving is you getting into the natural habitat of that favorite animal. Let's say it's a bird, an eagle. and soaring over the mountaintops or whatever. Literally go to a mountaintop and look down over the valleys and see everything from up high, and expose yourself on purpose to the natural habitat of whatever favorite animal comes to mind for this exercise. And again, I think the reason I loved it so much was because the first thing that popped into my head was house cat. My favorite animal is a house cat. And so expose yourself to the natural habitat of a house cat is like me being a house cat. And that's basically my life at this point. So other than making videos, I mostly just lay around and nap and snack and poop and bathe. And that's really all I got going on. So inner animal, we all have one. Humans are animals. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, we're all animals. So tapping back into that is allowing life to be that simple. Like animals live like, is a predator chasing me? No. Okay, then I'm at peace. Period. It's not more complicated than that. And it isn't for us either. But our brain and our Scorpio emotional attachments to things would have us believing that there are lots of things that are important enough to worry about and lose your inner peace over. I'm going to say like the best way to practice this North Node in Taurus is every time you find yourself in negative emotion, you remind yourself and ask yourself in that moment, is this situation really worth the price of my inner peace? Because that's what you're paying for that negative emotion. And sometimes it is. And there are such things as divine disgust and divine rage and sacred rage and all of these things. Our emotions are messages. They point us in the right direction. But at the same time, there is so much shit that we worry about and that we pay, like we just give away our inner peace over little tiddly bits that just don't even matter at all. Again, when we think about Taurus, we think about materialism and money and all of that. But really the deeper look into Taurus is it represents physical security. And so when you think about money, you can't eat it. You can't, it's not shelter. It's not blah, blah, blah. Like the whole point is that it almost guarantees you that your physical needs are going to be met when you have a certain amount of money. So the whole point is not even to physically survive. The whole point is to be at peace, to be at equilibrium. Like you can't fall asleep easily and all like stretched out in the sun if your belly's hungry, like you need to eat. And so if you don't have enough money to feed your belly, then you're having an uncomfortable experience, and finding that sense of peace is nearly impossible. So to connect to our inner animal, to connect to those highest frequencies of Taurus, it really is about like tuning into your body and getting your body as comfortable as it possibly can be. And that requires a deep level of listening to yourself. Like, what parts of your body want to be stretched? Does your body like your diet? Is your diet making you sick? Like, do you feel fed on a deep level, or is something missing? So there are so many different ways to tune in to our physical experience and to like light nice candles for ourselves, or like wrap ourselves up in a really cushy blanket, or play our favorite music, or immerse our vision in beauty, whatever that means to us. Look at beautiful things, whether that's nature or whatever kind of art we're into. As we immerse our five senses in things that feel good and feel pleasurable, and we listen to our body and we settle into that comfortable moment as much as we can, everything else just stops mattering. Like all the little trivial, nonsensical pieces of bullshit that we can occupy ourselves with instead of just letting ourselves chill out and be at peace. So it becomes really obvious, like the better we get at practicing our inner peace, the less willing we are to just give it away for no good reason. It's going to have to be something like pretty special for me to be willing to twirl myself up in it. Otherwise it's just not worth it. I want to feel good. I want to be at peace. I want to be at equilibrium. I want to be able to feel like my energetic connection to my higher self. I want my body to feel so good that connection just flows easily and naturally. I don't want to do anything that cuts me off from my own flow of energy. Because going back to like a little bit to tie all this together, it's like, how do you draw a line in the sand with someone who is like trying to control you and manipulate you and all of that? You know your own power. You know your own sense of inner peace. You know how to cultivate that for yourself. You know how to feel good on the inside, which means you're no longer dependent on whatever attachment you previously had to them. You know, like a lot of us get our sense of security from other people. And that's why we let them walk all over us, because we're getting something from them and we're paying our inner peace for it. When if you learn, like if you lean into this Taurus side, you connect with nature, you connect to your inner animal, you get yourself really comfortable, you really pamper yourself, you give yourself nice snacks, and you just take really good care of your physical vessel. That's what a Taurus is doing. And they're doing it because it puts the vessel at ease. And in that easy, simple place, life is easy and simple. Because every single moment, there's no longer even a decision to be made. You are simply an embodiment of your truth. And people outside of you can argue with that as much as they want. Till they're blue in the face, they can spend their life, they can devote their life to arguing with what you've embodied, and none of it matters to you. Because you found your way here on the inside. You connected to your own internal inner animal extension of the universe itself. You are powerful because you're here, period. And the animal knows that. The animal knows that unless there is a predator bearing down on you, there is literally nothing to worry about. So that is the beauty of this simplicity, is knowing that there is nothing to worry about. Also, I wanted to include in here that one of the criticisms that I've seen of Taurus is that they are stubborn, and that people complain that like, oh, my Taurus is so stubborn. How do you get your Taurus to do whatever? He's so stubborn. They're immune from emotional manipulation. That's what Taurus is. They're not stubborn. They just aren't having your bullshit. So again, going back to how do you tie all this together, it's like you no longer are under anybody else's control through your Scorpio sense of power, because you've taken back your power on the Taurus end and you've put it squarely inside of yourself, because you understand that the only thing that's powerful is the flow of energy through you. And when that's cut off, life is hard. And when that's open, life is easy. So opt for easy, opt for simple, opt for putting your power back inside of yourself where it belongs. There are also a lot of other benefits that come with Taurus energy. Again, they get a bad rap for being slow moving, but that whole tortoise and the hare thing, like the slow and steady wins the race. Like that is real. That's another reason that Taurus is associated with money. They're very good at making money because they will consistently show up and do what it takes to make money. Because that's really all you need is a little bit of consistency, and then money's yours. So it's like, there are so many benefits from practicing our Taurus energy and our ability to connect to our most inner authentic self and our deepest sense of value and our power where it really comes from. Again, because Taurus is deeply rooted in their internal value system. That's why they move so slowly. But at the same time, Taurus experiences like zero FOMO, fear of missing out, FOMO. No FOMO for Taurus, because Taurus is already living the life of its dreams. Taurus is already insanely comfortable and doesn't really need anything from anybody. There's really nothing like out there that they've got going on that like Taurus isn't already able to like enjoy their inner experience just as much. So cultivating an inner experience that you enjoy living is how you stave off things like emotional manipulation from other people trying to control you and take advantage of you. All of those things come from giving away our power. And the more we enjoy being inside of ourselves and living our lives, the less we're willing to give away our power, because it all just naturally comes together. To wrap up here, we'll touch real quick on the ruler of Taurus is Venus. And like I said, Venus is going through a retrograde right now that only happens once every year and a half. So I do have a video on Venus retrograde if you want to check that out. I put the link in the description for that as well. The other thing is 2022, which is only, a year of this 18-month cycle, but 2022 in numerology is a universal 6 year. If you add 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2, it's a 6. And that also is associated with Venus. So this whole Venusian energy and Taurus archetype that's our North Star for these next 18 months of development. It feels like unconditional love. It feels like balance. It feels like honoring our deepest selves. And we do that by mostly just paying attention to ourselves. So opening up inwardly to be able to hear what our body is communicating to us all the time. Our body's talking, and it's really only a question of, are we listening? And so to do Taurus, it's really just as simple as tuning into our body and listening. And it's really easy to think like, how can I not be in my body? I'm in my body all the time. Well, I mean the difference between being in your head, your mind, and being in your body. So to be in your body, your mind has to STF you, has to be quiet. So that part, if your mind is on, then you're in your mind. You're not in your body. So the fact that you're even asking that question, you're in your mind right now. See? So this is these blocks that we're purging through the Scorpio end are things that are keeping us out of our highest frequencies of peace, our highest frequencies of feeling content and feeling secure in this world, our highest frequencies of feeling our own power. So as we release, as we do the Scorpio end of our willingness to sit with things that feel uncomfortable and let ourselves be there, exposed to that long enough for us to understand it, that all of that is going hand in hand with this process of also simultaneously taking better care of ourselves and pampering our physical vessel better than we ever have. And so all of those pieces of the puzzle come together to create a much more empowered individual by the end of these 18 months. And that's ultimately going to be true, I think, for everyone, no matter how much they lean into it. So the more you lean into it, I'd say the more you can hope to accomplish, the more you're trying to grip on to the things that, you really don't want to lose or whatever. Obviously that'll slow you down a little bit, but I do think that the universal energies, they have their way with us no matter what we do. Our actions are very small in the grand scheme of things. Because well-being is so dominant. Let's not get mixed up there. So again, to recap, this is a voluntary release happening on the Scorpio South Node end. And because of that, we are freeing ourselves from worry and fears and attachments that really hold power over us, which is a concept that as you get more into your inner animal self, just isn't a thing. We are empowered beings, and sometimes we give our power away to other things, but that's really the only way that our power ever ends up outside of ourselves. And most of us, our parents, are well-meaning. They didn't understand probably back then that when you teach a kid that you're in control of their decisions, you take away their autonomy and you mess up their sense of power from day one. You teach them that power exists outside of them and is influencing them, and that they need to behave inside of these parameters of the power that's coming at them. And that is how society is set up. That's what laws are. That's what police officers are. All of these societal constructs to teach us that power is outside of us, and it's just not true. We are each empowered beings, and we are that way from the minute we get here. And it is only ever through learning things and soaking up belief systems where we believe that power is outside of us, and that's us giving it away. When we believe it, we're giving it away. And so through this last cycle, this last 18 months of the South Node through Sagittarius and letting go of those belief structures that don't serve us, now we can see more clearly what are the belief systems that do resonate with us. And as we go through power struggles going forward where we feel like someone's being controlling over us or is trying to manipulate us, or we catch ourselves in the act of doing that to somebody else, this is a time to take a step back and ask yourselves, why can't I feel my power inside of myself? Why am I having to work this out externally? Like, already I know I'm hitting the rumble strips. The fact that I'm in a power struggle means there's something inside of me that is ready to be released, an understanding that is ready to come to fruition. So it's all about, like, always, not just in this cycle, but really always, it's all about recognizing negative emotion for what it is and a message. It's here to tell you something. It's an alert. It's an alert on your phone. It's the buzzer on the oven going, ding, your banana bread's ready. Now, do you want to get it out, or do you want to ignore the ding and let it just stay in there? Because now your house is filled with smoke and your smoke alarm is going off and your banana bread is inedible. It's really gross now. Then you really just should have, like, when it dinged, you really just should have taken it out and got it out and had it. So that's negative emotion. It's like a right now, this piece is ready for you to come and sit with it. So that's like how to Scorpio. And if there is no ding, so if you're in a moment where there isn't something pressing coming to the surface, you're in positive emotion, milk it for all it's worth. Do the thing where the cat lays out and stretches out in the sun and takes a nap, and then 2 hours later just flops and stretches and takes another 2-hour nap. So do that more often. Pamper your physical vessel. Rest more. Eat more yummy snacks, more baths, more showers, whatever feels nice, your favorite clothes, bundle up. It is a time to physically enjoy yourself. And to the end of the more you enjoy being inside your life, the less you will let other people control you and the less you will feel the need to control other people. So anytime we find ourselves in a power struggle, there's a deficiency. It's a cue to refocus back into ourselves. Ultimately, like I said, I think at the end of this, we will all be more self-empowered. We will also all have a better sense of our own self-worth and our worthiness and our deservability. Again, depending on where you're starting from and how willing you are in this process, maybe you make this much progress, maybe you make this much progress. I think it just really depends on our own individual chart. But this is a time for all of us to align fully with our own personal value system and let that be the end of it. There's so much division right now, and this is a cycle still of kind of, I think, even further dividing, and not necessarily further dividing and getting louder in the argument, but further dividing and getting quieter in the argument of it all, because really we realize we are sovereign beings. No one can ever make you do anything. No one else has power over you other than when you've given it away. So arguing with anything outside of ourselves is really just a waste of our energy. And the sooner we can recognize that and use it as a signpost to turn back in and figure out what are you doing internally to block yourself off from your power. That's really the more productive use of that focus. All of this comes together with basically culminating in a new level of knowing our own well-being, which is to say, know our inner peace, our sense of inner peace. And by extension, I would have to say also new levels of enjoying our physical life on this planet. There are so many things out there that maybe aren't ideal or even bad or whatever you want to call it. Diversity, it's just diversity. But it's the more we give our attention to that stuff, the more we want to argue with somebody else who's doing it differently, the more we're giving away our power instead of just realizing just do it however you want. Just do whatever you want, whatever side. There's trillions of sides to every issue. Whatever side you are on, you are right, and just let that be the end of it. Everybody's right. Everybody just withdraw to their own personal physical experience and live it the way you want. And let that be the end of it. And if you're not able to let that be the end of it, if you feel the need to fight it out with other people who are doing it differently, then that's where I say, you have to ask yourself, why do you feel the need to control other people? Why can't you feel your own inherent power? And why is that not enough? Why are you harvesting power from other people? So I think we all fall on all sides of this spectrum of, sometimes we're at peace, sometimes we're not, sometimes we're being controlled, sometimes we're controlling. I think we're all doing all of these things all the time. So it's really nothing to ever take personally or feel singled out about. It really is like something that we can all learn from these collective energies, and what exactly that looks like will be a little bit different for all of us. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're learning how to feel our own power. And if you're even a little bit on my wavelength here, you are just as excited about this as I am. Let's see what we got in our notes here. Let's just see what our notes have to offer. Ooh, for more insight into your personal evolution through these collective energies, you will want to look at what houses Taurus and Scorpio occupy. So I'll put the chart back on the screen here. So in this example, let's see. In this example, Taurus is in the 12th house and the 11th house. And then opposite of that, Scorpio is in the 6th house and the 5th house. So for each individual person, depending on what time of day you were born, Taurus and Scorpio are going to fall into different houses. It'll be unique to your chart. So that's where we say, this energy of these power struggles and being emotionally attached to pain from the past versus like letting yourself be at peace in the present moment. You can see how these two things are opposites. That is going to play out in a different life area for each of us, depending on where Taurus and Scorpio fall in the houses. So each house is its own life area. So that's where you can begin to kind of personalize this for yourself. You'll also want to look for where your natal North Node and South Node are. So like where those placements are in your chart, again, by house and by sign. So understanding like what is your karmic past, what is your personal South Node that you're like, that's the bigger picture of what you're trying to purge and release. What is your natal North Node? That's the bigger picture of your personal North Star that you're ultimately aiming towards. It's always a great time to get to know those placements. And especially as we step into a new cycle when the nodes move in January to Taurus and Scorpio, it's a great time to reorient ourselves with that bigger picture of like, ultimately, what is it that you're trying to contribute here to the collective? Also, going back to the chart rulers, we can look at your natal Pluto and your natal Venus. So they're getting a different treatment. Like imagine like an automated car wash where there's all different kinds of brushes and waxes and hot water and cold water and rinses and little flappy things. Like there's all different kinds of treatments. And so the North Node treatment, so the car wash that your North Node ruler planet goes through is very different than the car wash that the South Node ruler planet is going through. They're doing a different process, a different flappy thing process. So Venus, North Node, is going through a cycle where we're building, we're lifting up all the best qualities of your Venus placement. This is like your sense of value, your self-worth, your values in the world, how you feel worthy in the world. All of those things can go back to your personal Venus placement. So during this North Node in Taurus transit, we're building up our personal Venus placement. So understanding the sign and house and aspects of your Venus, it's like those are going to become more prevalent now. You're going to get more powerful in those elements of your personality. Meanwhile, the car wash flappy process that the South Node is going through is very different. It's much more nitty gritty. It's like a sandstone, like power washer. It's not so nice. It's not so gentle. And it is about scrubbing away everything that is left over in your Scorpio realm that is not serving you right now. We only have to do this once every 19 years, and it's time. It's time to take a big washcloth and just wipe away everything that is no longer serving us where we stand today. So it is so much a process of doing both back and forth. And basically when we look at our Pluto planet, then it's like that planet, that placement by sign and house for whatever it is in your chart is getting cleansed. So shadows that you have in this area of your life are what will be in focus during this Scorpio release. It's like, look for where your Pluto is, and that can give you a big sign of what those fears and attachments are likely to look like. Also remember that we're starting off this Taurus Scorpio cycle with Venus and Pluto conjunct in Capricorn, and Venus going through one of the rare retrogrades for Venus, which is really bringing the Capricorn side of the equation into the mix and saying that the structures that we've built in our life that are preventing us from either doing the emotional release, they're keeping us stuck in our karmic past, or they're preventing us from finding our way to our inner peace. They're standing in the way. They're keeping us in those lower vibrations. All of those structures can't stand and do the emotional release and find our inner peace. So the Capricorn side of it, those energies are up there, honestly supporting this changeover from one regime to the next regime. There's like the old structure and it has to burn to the ground so that the new structure can rise. The phoenix rising from the ashes style transformation. So that piece of it, it's easy to feel, especially if you're averse to change, it's easy to feel like, I don't want this. Life is happening to me, and this is a great season to just repeat over and over and over again. Life does not happen to us. It happens for us. So if we're being met with an obstacle, that means we're ready to face it. So the more we can lean into facing whatever obstacles that come up, the easier this path will end up being to navigate. Ultimately, like I said, we come out the other side being less weighed down by the past and more securely grounded into our own sense of worthiness, our own inherent value as a being on this planet at this time. And from there, I promise we'll look forward a cycle into Aries Libra just a little bit. So from there, the South Node will then move through Libra. So we'll be purging on the Libra side, and the North Node will go from Taurus up into Aries. And so these changes, like, I feel like as we went through this current cycle of Gemini, Sagittarius, and now we're moving into Taurus, Scorpio, this is a strengthening process. This is a necessary trimming away of all of the excess baggage that is only weighing us down, so we are as lean and as mean as we possibly can be, and the most at peace, the most knowing what truly matters, the most discerning between things that are pretending to be valuable and things that are really valuable. We're practicing our ability to figure out what truly has value in life, and we're letting go of anything that's only an imposter, only trying to steal our focus. And as we do all of that, again, lean, mean, fighting machines, and then the North Node enters Aries. So at that point, Aries is our warrior spirit. It is like associated with the divine masculine. It's our ability to roar out into the world about not just anything, but what matters to us. Warriors don't just go to war. They go to war over something that matters. So when we think about all of this release work that we're doing, all of this deep emotional processing that we're doing, all of this finding our way into a place of inner peace, regardless of what's going on around us, think about how much that will serve us when it comes time for this North Node transit through Aries 18 months from now, where it will be time to step out into the fullest form expression of yourself and plant your flag in the ground for what matters to you. It will be time to go to war if necessary over what matters to you. And I'll tell you right now, what matters to me is inner peace. What matters to me is unconditional love for myself and for all beings. So I can already feel it coming. I can already feel that, like, all of this clarity around our values and our ability to know our power, it will serve us when it comes time to make our stand and to plant ourselves firmly out in the world and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what matters to me, and this is the life force I came to put here. That is, oh God, it sounds amazing. And it sounds terrifying. It sounds like nothing that you would want to face until you're ready. So On the flip side of that, that's the North Node end of being able to like step forward into that. On the South Node end is the purge in Libra. And Libra is our ability to connect with others. It's our ability to compromise and collaborate and partner and do teamwork with other people and like recognize the strengths of other people. But the shadow of Libra is overcompromise. The shadow of Libra is losing yourself in the crowd and letting the harmony of the group override your own personal desire. So the purge in Libra will be getting over exaggerated social graces. So we don't have to be nice to people all the time, especially when it contradicts what your inner warrior is all about. Sometimes it's time to make a stand. It's time to assert the fire of your soul. We are all fire-breathing dragons at our soul. That's Aries. That's the Aries archetype coming up out of us. We all have it somewhere. We all have Mars somewhere, even if you don't have any planets in Aries. So it will be time to assert who you are and what you stand for out into the world. And this next cycle of getting really clear around what we value and where our value comes from, which again goes back to the very fact that we're here, alive, we're valuable, period, case closed. That's the Taurus version of the story. The Scorpio end, the purging of emotional attachments to things that have power over us, that we let have power over us. You can see how as we go into the South Node purging through Libra, that's going to serve us even further as we further disintegrate ourselves from these social structures and more firmly plant ourselves inside what truly matters to our unique soul, to go to war if necessary. So that's why I feel like this Taurus Scorpio cycle is like ratcheting up, turning the volume knob up on our own inner power, because we are going to need it for what comes next. These cycles always build on each other, one right after another. From that standpoint, I would also recommend the video I posted a while back where I tell the story of how my Gemini Sagittarius cycle has come together. So the 18 months of evolution that took place over that time and all the different pieces along the way, just to try to paint a picture of like, here's the kinds of things that it looks like. Like, here's a more practical version of that story. Obviously, I haven't lived the Taurus Scorpio one yet, so that video will be out in about 18 months. But the Gemini Sagittarius one is out right now, so feel free to check that out for more helpful insight as far as like processing how does this transformation actually play out from purging this one side to moving towards this other side. I sure hope you have enjoyed this deep dive into the North Node, South Node transit through Taurus and Scorpio as much as I have. As you can see, I am very passionate about this topic, and that is why I'm also pretty sure this won't be my only video on this topic as we go through the transits. So if you have any questions as far as something that I could have expanded on more or something I said that you're wanting to know more about, please leave me those questions in the comments so that next time I make a video on this topic, I make sure to include those little bits. I will be out soon with some more videos, I'm sure. I love it. I can't help myself. Actually, my favorite part about making videos is editing the videos. So I'm headed to my happy place now, which is downstairs on the couch with the headphones in the dark, editing this video for the next 12 hours. So as you can see, a little bit of work goes into it. So if you do find value from content on YouTube, not just mine, anybody, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video if you feel called to leave some words of whatever. All of those pieces drive the content to see more people on YouTube. So that is helpful to the creators, no matter if they're me or anybody else. So there's my little PSA for this day. And until next time, dear friends, thank you so much for listening. As we enter this Taurus North Node season, take extra good care of yourselves. And so will I.